I think we do. I think that's one of the ways that we typically approach disability. And if we think, for instance, of war veterans, that war veterans are often the males, the men in society, the warriors have gone off to fight and have the courage and go through the losses their families and friends do to fight wars, and they come back with horrific kind of injuries. And I think they often become an emblem or a key way that we think about disability. And in Australia, for instance, a lot of the social support around disability developed, as it did in the US and elsewhere, because veterans came back from war and said, well, you sent us to war, we got injured, we had horrific injuries, and now how you support us. So they created veterans benefits, they created rehabilitation. A lot of the constructs and systems around disability came from that. And so I think we often think in these terms around the physical impairment. And then I think in terms of meaning, if we think, what's the most common symbol of disability? Often it's the person who's in the wheelchair user. And we think of them in particular ways, kind of stereotypes actually about their bodies. Because when people do things like they're in a wheelchair for some of the time, but they can move out of the wheelchair, or they're in a wheelchair for 3 years, but then a condition changes, we don't cope with that very well. And so, and I think, building on that a bit to say when we look at stereotypes, we then don't really deal well with non-physical or so-called, invisible disabilities. So that if people have a psychiatric disability, they have an episodic condition, there's ways in which we can't see, so to speak, or we can't recognise their disability. Their disability is not legible to us in a society. I think we still think there's a kind of hierarchy of disability types that guides how we approach this.